Our Drooler-N-Chief stumbled his way through another Batstew sermon today, in which he outlined his big plan to combat the Omicron variant of the chai stew. Included were outright lies about what is happening in South Africa, where the actual data shows dropping hospitalization rates despite the nation's heavy caseload. That Biden would take such an approach is hardly surprising at this point. Like many others in positions of power, he sees the Batstew as a perpetual crisis from which to benefit. Now, because Omicron's apparent lack of severity points towards a way out of the pandemic, right on time, the desperation in the president's rhetoric must escalate. That's because he needs a scapegoat for his failed policies, you see, and the continued existence of this plandemic affords him the perfect one, the unjabbed. And right on cue, dipshit attacked the unjabbed in his speech, managing to pack a number of false statements into just a couple of minutes. Now, whoever typed this nonsense into the teleprompter for the imposter-in-chief must really hate their lives and should probably be placed on some sort of a suicide watch. We'll watch a clip right after this quick commercial break to pay some bills. It's no secret that liberals are waging a war on the Second Amendment, and Trump supporters, of course. Make no mistake, the Democrats and Joe Biden are on the warpath to further erode the Second Amendment and eventually, sooner or later, take your guns. As such, we can no longer stand back and watch the values that founded this great nation be trampled on any further. As a proud American in this God-fearing, gun-toting nation, we must stand up and fight for our rights to bear arms and the Second Amendment in every way. That's why, for a limited time only, Trump-supporting gun lovers will be able to receive a buy one get one free limited edition gold-plated Second Amendment Is My Gun Permit coin. This amazing Second Amendment Is My Gun Permit coin is on track to become the most popular Second Amendment memorabilia out there. And as always, liberals can't stand it, which should be a good enough reason to own a couple anyway. You can pick them up by hitting that link in the description box below. Support the Second Amendment while supporting this channel. Plant that puppy proudly on your mantle or fireplace so there's never a question on where you stand.
And again, to folks who are not vaccinated, you might think you're putting only yourself at risk, but it's your choice. Your choice is not just a choice about you. It affects other people. You're putting other people at risk. Your loved ones, your friends, neighbors, strangers you run into. And your choice can be the difference between life or death. The longer the virus is around, the more likely variants form that may be deadlier than the ones that have come before. Let me say again and again and again and again, please get vaccinated. It's the only responsible thing to do. Those who are not vaccinated are causing hospitals to become overrun again. I just spoke to the governor of New York. Every COVID-19 hospital means someone with a heart attack, cancer, or other serious illness may not get that bed and that life-saving care they need in the hospital. Look, let me give it to you straight again. Omicron is serious, potentially deadly business for unvaccinated people.
Okay, so once again we get the same old anti-science propaganda about how the unvaccinated are putting others at risk. Yet, as I've said multiple times in the past, not based on my opinion, but based on objective sourcing, everyone spreads the Batstew. This ignorant idea that the unjabbed are somehow putting the vaccinated at risk by interacting in public is pure nonsense. To the extent that vaccinations are necessary for some people, it's because they themselves require protection. But someone getting vaccinated does not protect their coworkers from getting infected. That's even more true now, given how transmissible Omicron is. Biden says this garbage, though, because it allows him to pit Americans against each other. That's always the goal with Democrats. The unvaccinated also represent a distraction from the economic and foreign policy failures that have plagued the Biden administration. As long as there's a pandemic, and there are unvaccinated people, even those with scientifically proven natural immunity, the president feels as if he's got someone to blame for everything. Doesn't matter that his proclamations aren't backed by data. As to this notion that the unvaccinated are going to cause more deadly variants, we again have real-world data that counters that. While it's possible a virus can mutate and become more deadly, it's more common for viruses to become less lethal and more transmittable. You see, that's exactly what's happened with the Batstew, from Alpha to Delta and now Omicron. Again, we have the actual data that shows that. Yet dipshit tries to scare the hell out of the low IQ masses and demonizes a made-up opposition anyways. Oh, and of course, misrepresentations about hospitals also made an appearance again. Biden framed them as being overrun with non-Batstew patients needing care and not being able to get it. But I'm unaware of a single instance of a cancer patient or victim of a heart attack, those are the examples he gave, outright being unable to receive treatment anywhere due to having too many Batstew patients. While that's a favorite line or lie of the left, it seems to lack much in any way of evidence. And trust me, if they had any evidence whatsoever, it would be in your face, day and night. But hey, don't trust my word for it. Here's the Northwell Health's CEO commenting on the situation in New York, where one of the country's largest outbreaks is actually occurring. John Berman tweeted out just now, quote, "We're doing very, very well. Very manageable. There's no crisis. We have about 460 patients in our hospital. That's less than 10% of our overall capacity." Northwell Health CEO Michael J. Dowling said on hospital situation in New York City. You can find the full clip on my Twitter feed. So in summary, Joe Biden is a liar, but it's worse than that. He's willing to lie in ways that directly and dangerously target normal Americans just trying to live their lives. A person is not evil for not being vaccinated, and they do not deserve to be demonized. They are not putting a vaccinated person at risk because they are vaccinated. I cannot believe I have to say that. And besides, many of those unvaccinated people have natural immunity anyways, from prior infection. But Beijing Biden needs that punching bag now, doesn't he? And he's going to keep punching it until people say enough is enough. And the best way to do that remains not complying with this moron's edicts. Ignore this buffoon and all of his minions.
Masks will keep you safe. Ukraine is essential to our national security. Rachel Levine is an admiral. Pete Buttigieg is a genius. And so on, day after day. It's enough to make you feel like you're going crazy after a while. Am I the only person who sees that all of this is total BS? You start to ask yourself that. So to clear the mental palate tonight, to restore sanity, we're going to return to what we actually know, which is to say to the facts. Here is the most important fact in American politics right now. The Democratic Party just hit a brick wall. Democrats cannot continue to run the United States of America. Why? Here's why. A new Marist poll, we told you about it last night, shows that only 33% of Latino voters support Joe Biden. Politically, that is fatal. Ask anyone who does politics for a living, ask, can a Democrat get elected president with 33% of the Hispanic vote? Or for that matter with 43%? Or for that matter with 53%? No, is the answer. No chance. It's impossible. That's the headline. This is a huge change from what most people thought just 3 days ago. Certainly what Democrats thought. Democrats sincerely believed they were the party of oppressed racial minorities, a group that they alone could protect from white racism. That was the whole point of the party. And weirdly, Republican leaders seem to kind of accept it as true. But actually, it turns out it wasn't true at all. In fact, the Democratic Party is not the party of oppressed racial minorities. It's the opposite. It's the party of entitled white liberals, and pretty much only entitled white liberals. Democratic donors live in Aspen and Martha's Vineyard and Bel Air. Democratic voters live in Brooklyn and Chevy Chase and Newton, Mass. and Boulder, Colorado. And increasingly, those are the only places they live. You know that lady who screeches at you in the airport about pulling your mask over your nose? That's the modern Democratic Party. No normal person likes that lady. She's awful. So effectively, as an electoral matter, that party is done. We're not going to have any more Democratic presidents for a while. Sorry. This is a big deal. You'd think it would be getting wide coverage in the media today, but no, it's not. Can't have that. Time for a new PSYOP. Time to crank up the fear machine. Now they're telling you you're going to die of a cold. They're calling it Omicron. It's a terrifying new variant of COVID, which you'll remember is a name they picked to conceal the fact that the entire pandemic was likely created in a lab by the Chinese government with the help of American tax dollars. But shut up! Stop talking, that's racist. And now Omicron's here. So there's no time to think. Your job is to be afraid. And unfortunately, many people are afraid. They haven't had time, because they're so afraid, to check the numbers and discover that as an epidemiological matter, this is all completely insane. Far more Americans have died this month from choking on entrees than have died from Omicron. That is factually true. The CDC can confirm it for you. But just as an exercise, we're going to ignore reality for a moment and take you to the President of the United States, who shuffled on stage this afternoon to mumble about Omicron. Here's part of what he said.
And I know some Americans are wondering if you can safely celebrate the holidays with your family and friends. The answer is yes, you can. If you and those you celebrate with are vaccinated, particularly if you've gotten your booster shot. If you are vaccinated and follow the precautions that we all know well, you should feel comfortable celebrating Christmas and the holidays as you planned it.
So there you go. If you've had at least 3 Joe Biden-approved vaccine injections, you can celebrate Christmas. That's the word from our Botox Napoleon. Otherwise, you can't celebrate Christmas. How long before they tell us you can't vote in person without the vaccine? That's coming, obviously. But for now, Joe Biden has canceled Christmas for America's working class, now known as, quote, the unvaccinated. They didn't vote for him in the last election, so they can't celebrate Christmas.
Some of this came by way of redstate.com. If you liked it, hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't. Leave a comment down below. There's a PayPal link in the description box, so please put $1 in the bucket on the way out the door. I'd like to thank everyone for all your donations. They're much needed and much appreciated. Now, with all that being said, we'll see you next time.
Come on, move. Move. Easy, easy.